Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a 114-103 victory over the Utah Jazz at Chase Center on Tuesday night. I apologize, I'm a little bit late, but I'll get to your comments here in a second. Not a game to be put in the memory bank, it must be said, for both teams. The Warriors didn't play really well, it must be said, and it did look like there for a little bit during the fourth quarter that they could get perhaps one of the worst losses of the season. Now playing without Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, always going to be maybe somewhat difficult, but you are coming up against a Utah Jazz team who are in full-blown tank mode and who are missing a bunch of key guys themselves, like John Collins wasn't playing, Larry Markin obviously wasn't playing, Walker Kessler wasn't playing, keep on naming them. There was a bunch of guys out for both teams. And the Jazz, after trailing by 11 at the end of the first half, got back within one at 100-99 there with 6 minutes left. And you thought, geez, if the Warriors lose this game, this has got nightmare written all over it. And fortunately for them, they went on an 11-2 run and kind of closed the game out there and made it comfortable enough, kind of eased concerns to the point where the game wasn't really in danger with a few minutes left. But again, they didn't play overly well. They shot just 39% from the floor, of course, coming up against the Thunder. Tomorrow, they're going to have to play a lot better. Steph should be back for this game. I'm pretty convinced, obviously Steph's dealing with his knee tendonitis stuff. I'm pretty convinced that Steve Kerr and the Warriors saw Utah's injury report and just decided we should win this game without Steph, so we're going to sit Steph. Now, he was a late inclusion onto the injury report only a couple of hours before the game. He wasn't on it previously. And again, I think that was simply down to seeing Utah's injury report, seeing Markin out, seeing John Collins out, seeing a bunch of guys out for them and just deciding, hey, we'll get Steph to play tomorrow against the Thunder. We're pretty confident of winning this game. And I suppose that tactic might have been a little bit worrisome when they were only up one midway through that fourth quarter, and you thought, okay, well, you probably want Steph for this moment. But fortunately, they were able to close it out. Just someone I want to mention first up, Brandin Podziemski, I thought was one of, if not his best performance of the season. He was a Rising Star Challenge snub at All-Star Weekend, which was a curious one, I think, particularly for Warrior fans. You look at the Rising Stars Challenge, those squads, the players that have been selected. Trace Jackson-Davis is there, and Brandin Podziemski isn't, which based on this game and recent form, you just wonder how that's possible. Now, obviously, Podz was an all-rookie first-team member last season. He has been injured, so he's kind of been out of the limelight, I suppose. But for comparison's sake, he played nearly 33 minutes in this game, hit 4 threes, had 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, was a plus 19 in his minutes. Trace Jackson-Davis played 6 minutes. All in the first half, did not play. It was a DNP basically in the second half. Did not see any action. Steve Kerr preferred to go to Kevon Looney, who I thought was excellent in this game, and also Quentin Post, who played over 16 minutes. And it was an interesting night for Quentin Post. It was interesting, but we'll get into it. I want to get into some of your comments. I just wanted to shout out Podz there. GSW says, straight off the bat, Brandin Podziemski needs to come to a complete stop. He was hooping before injury, and he's continued it. Yeah, he had a good 6 or 7 games prior to the injury. The injury kind of came at a bad time, but he's picked up from where he left off, which is really good. I just love the three-point shooting because that's the thing that's going to be the big deciding factor for him is can he be a higher volume and highly efficient three-point shooter? And, he's 4 of 11 today. He got 11 threes up. I don't particularly love that he and Schroeder took a combined 24 threes. I'm not sure those two guys are the high volume three-point shooters that you want necessarily. But obviously with Steph out of the lineup, part of that is, someone's got to put them up. And most of them were open. There was a sequence there at the end of the game where the Warriors get about 4 open threes and they missed them all and kept getting offensive rebounds and kept kicking it back out. Another 3 chucked up. Wasn't a great game to watch, it must be said. There was a lot of fouls, a lot of free throw shooting. Utah went 17 of 24 from the line. The Warriors went 25 of 31, particularly in that second half. Felt like the game went forever. Just wasn't really a great game to watch, but certainly some positives to the Warriors in terms of Podz. And even Schroeder, I know he wasn't overly efficient, but 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Shook off that ankle injury in the third quarter, which looked like it was going to be a bit worrisome. So a good performance from 2 of the Warrior guards there to really lead the way. Andrew Wiggins had 19 points, again, not overly efficient. I thought Moses Moody took advantage of a starting role. We saw another change in the starting lineup from Steve Kerr with Schroeder and Buddy Hield starting alongside Wiggins, Moody, and Trace. But of course, Trace, I mean, he didn't play in the second half. Kevon Looney started the second half, and Loon played over 24 minutes, had 11 rebounds, 5 of which were offensive. Daniel says agree. He doesn't deserve hate. I think it just comes from frustration. We reportedly could have had Lowry unfair to Podz, but still. Yeah, I think that's mainly where it comes from, is that, hey, we could have traded this guy. This guy was the piece missing, I suppose, from Utah, and they desperately wanted him, and the Warriors weren't willing to give him up. So that's I suppose it's frustrating, the fact that a lot of fans will always point to that and say, this guy could have been Larry Markkinen, when we all have to realize, like, it would have taken Podz and stuff, Podz and draft picks, Podz and the salary matching to get to Larry Markkinen, albeit he was only like 18 million at the time, but still, it would have taken multiple players and multiple draft picks, including Brandin Podziemski, to make it happen, not just a Podz and Markkinen kind of out by themselves in the one scenario. So I think it is. I think a lot of it got a bit too personal for me earlier in the season. Like, I think we were really like having a go at not his character, but like, well, yeah, his character somewhat, and the fact that he comes across so confident, and that his performances just simply weren't backing up what he'd been saying in the offseason and what the franchise had been saying in the offseason. And again, I don't think that was his fault. I don't have any criticism of any person who comes out and says, I want to be this, I want to do that. Like, I'm all for people having their individual goals, and you can set your mind to that and go for it. Absolutely. I'm not going to have any issue with that. But when the franchise comes out and says, we've got an all-star level player on our hands, then all of a sudden, instantly fans are going to start comparing this guy to, okay, is he on the trajectory of being an all-star level player? And it must be said, obviously, earlier in the season, Podz wasn't there. I still don't think he is there, but he showed tonight he can be like a 20-point scorer for you. Can he do that consistently? I don't know. That's going to be the real question mark, because always been the scoring has always been the thing for me. Like, he can do so many things for you and be such an effective player, but like, how many star players are there that have never averaged like 20 points? I think, maybe Draymond's an out of the box. He's a rare one where, he's considered a star and has been a 4-time all-star in his career because of his playmaking ability, because of his ball handling at the forward position, and most notably his defense. So, Draymond's one of the best defenders in the history of the game. What's Podz actually bring to the table if he's not going to be, a 20-point per game guy? So that's the scoring and the shooting is clearly, that's the thing for Podz, between whether he's just a good average role player or a really good, like, close to all-star level player. I'm not out on that yet. Like, can he still get to the all-star level? Possibly. Like, the guy is 21 years old in his second season. Like, there's going to be some ups and downs. It's not all linear growth. And that's why I think even when he was struggling earlier in the season, yes, I was critical of his play, but I also said at the same time, hey, like, you got to be a bit patient, and you can't change up your mindset on this guy based on 20 games. And I'm very glad that he's starting to turn things around. FTW Clan, I'll go back up to a few more comments here. GSO says Quinton Post can miss 10 open dunks in a row, and I'd still take him in the starting lineup. Yeah, it was a bit of a weird. I tell you what, that was really his first rookie moment in that fourth quarter there early on, where he got a beautiful pass inside, went up to dunk it and got blocked by the rim. Just got blocked by the rim. Then I think he got the rebound, tried to throw it back up, missed again. Jazz got the rebound, and then he was kind of running back in transition, and then he got completely lost on defense, and someone ran into him, and he fouled someone on a drive. It was just that 20-second sequence was very rough, and kind of just what you get with rookies sometimes, where they have something embarrassing happen, like getting blocked by the rim on a dunk, and then they kind of get lost a little bit on defense, and that it just all happened at once, which was unfortunate. I thought he was okay otherwise. Like, he hit 2 threes, he put up another 5. Had 10 points, 5 rebounds, couple of assists. I like what he's doing. I just hope that sequence there doesn't dent his confidence too much, because I think he's playing really well. GSO says, I'm not even going to talk about Buddy. Same thing every time. Yeah, the guy just should not be starting. He plays, like, come on, what are we doing here? He played 22 minutes, was 1 of 7, 0 of 4, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and was a negative 12. I mean, how difficult is it, honestly, how difficult is it to start Moody, Santos, and Wiggins at the 2, 3, and the 4? How difficult is it? Moses was interviewed at halftime and said there's no difference between playing the 2, 3, and the 4 in this system. Like, it's the exact same. So what's stopping you from saying, all right, Curry, Wiggins, Moody, Santos, and then insert whether, like, what are they doing with TJD? Is he going to be the starter tomorrow against the Thunder? Are they going to go small? Because obviously Chet's out, and I'm pretty sure Hartenstein's out as well. Could they start Kyle Anderson at the 5? Obviously, you're not going to be starting. I don't know what they're going to. I think they might go back to Looney. I'd go back to Looney and have like Steph, Moody, Wiggins, Santos, and Loon. That might be my 5 for like tomorrow's game against the Thunder. But it's just so frustrating that we continue to have these starting lineup conversations. And for 2 years now, the Warriors have not been able to bed down a consistent starting 5. It's so frustrating. And the Warriors, as from early in the season, have still got these issues with who's the starting shooting guard and who's the starting center. We still have these question marks. The FTW Clan says Podz is out of his slump. Schroeder stepped up too without Curry. Curious why Trace has lost all his minutes, though. He's just not doing anything, really. Like, I think he might have had a nice dunk early on, but I don't know. I just don't. He's just not impacting the game. He's gone back to what he was earlier in the season, which is just not doing enough. Not doing enough. And unfortunately, like, Loon brought plenty of energy to this game. His rebounding has been huge. And Quinton Post obviously just gives you an offensive dynamic that the Warriors otherwise don't have. FTW Clan says they definitely decided to rest Steph with a tougher game tomorrow. I agree with that. Berserk Monk says Podz always plays better as a 2 when he doesn't need to be the primary ball handler. Podz plays great. Yep. If you haven't watched or heard my podcast from yesterday, I mentioned this exact thing when it came to potential Schroeder trades and saying that, okay, if you're going to trade Schroeder, you're going to have to bring back another veteran point guard. Who could that possibly be? I don't know. De'Aaron Fox, hello, maybe we might get into some trade stuff in a second. But yes, Schroeder's not necessarily playing well himself individually, but the fact that he allows Podz to be more of a combo guard, more of a 2 guard, you say, like, that is so much easier for Brandin Podziemski, allows him to affect the game so much more positively than what we saw at the start of the season when he was asked to be the backup point guard and a primary shot creator. So it means a lot, I think, to Podz to have Schroeder next to him. And allows him to do all these things, rebounding, assists, all that kind of stuff that ends up being so effective for the team. We've seen that in his plus-minus recently, including another plus 19 in this game today. FTW Clan says, thank God Dennis came back. Did not look good when he was helped to the locker room. No, not at all. Fortunately, he was back. We'll see how he's feeling tomorrow and whether he's up to playing or not. Gamer FTP, in the last 10 games, Buddy is 30% from 3 and 67% from the free throw line. It might even go longer than that. Like, what are his numbers over the last... He had 10 good games. Maybe stretch it out to 15. So if you take 15 games off, what are the Warriors? 23 and 23 now. The last 30 games. Tell me what his numbers are the last 30 games. They're probably similar to that. Gamer FTP says, Warriors always have bad starts because if you watch all their games, the first bucket is always a TJD to the basket and then they feed Buddy. Buddy missing wide open shots is a killer, man. Yeah. Berserk Monk says, I would rather have a funner game with Steph playing tonight and resting against OKC to save face, but tomorrow's game is a TNT game. Can't load manage stars on those games. It's a good point you make in terms of nationally televised games and not being able to rest stars. Although Steph's dealing with the thumb injury, he's dealing with the knee issue. Like, I don't think they're resting him. Like, you could legitimately just, have him play today and then say tomorrow, they look like he's injured now. The NBA would probably be like, well, why did he play the night before? I don't know. Maybe the NBA came in and said something and said, hey, what are you doing with Steph? Warriors said, he might rest tomorrow. And they're like, whoa, no, we can't have that. Make sure he rests tonight. Who knows? Young West says, Warriors are back in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes after Jimmy walked out of practice and got extended suspension. Jimmy's price tag is lowered and reports say Warriors are interested. Yes. Now, let me see a few more comments here from you guys on the Jimmy stuff. But Jetman says, Jimmy would cost Draymond all wigs, though. Any other? Maddie says, in trade discussions, would you be more open to trading Wiggins or Draymond? Okay, cool. So I'll get the quote from you. This was the latest from Mark Stein only a couple of hours ago in relation to the Warriors and Jimmy Butler. Sorry, I'm just getting it up here. Mark Stein, obviously long-term NBA insider, says there was likewise a belief Tuesday that Golden State, thanks to the presumed lower threshold now needed to satisfy Miami, was indeed poised to re-enter the trade fray for the six-time NBA All-Star. So there is the confirmation the Warriors have renewed interest in Jimmy Butler. Obviously, did have a couple of months ago now almost, and then it kind of petered out to nothing. And now, all of a sudden, less than 10 days, just over a week out from the deadline, there's renewed interest in Jimmy Butler. Look, for me personally, what does the lower price entail from the Warriors? Okay, so to me, that sounds like, all right, no longer would it take Jonathan Kuminga. No longer would it take Brandin Podziemski. No longer would it take significant draft capital. I think we're honestly I think Miami are probably sick of the situation to the point they'll just take contracts on. So long as they're short-term contracts. They're not going to take on Bradley Beal 2 years left at over $100 million. We know that. So they just want, I think, short-term contracts. Maybe you throw a bit of... I'm not even sure a first-round pick would be necessary right now. So that means, again, from a Golden State perspective, no Kuminga, no Podziemski, probably not even a first-round pick. So what can the Warriors offer up? The issue is here with Jimmy Butler is he still makes $48.8 million. So he's still having to trade a bunch of guys, including one big salary. And as you guys have mentioned in the comments here, it's going to have to either be Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green. From my perspective, I'm just not doing that. I'm flat out. I'm sorry. I hope the Warriors stuff in terms of being linked to Jimmy Butler again is kind of just news and not actually like reality, because I don't really want it to happen. Okay, I like the idea of having a second go-to shot creator. He's obviously got significant playoff experience. I'm not saying that Andrew Wiggins is a better player than Jimmy Butler, but the facts are that they average about the same amount of points. Andrew Wiggins is the primary perimeter defender. Now, you can say Jimmy Butler is a very good defender, maybe a better defender than Andrew Wiggins, but at 34 years old with his injury history, are you going to be asking him to be a primary defender out on the perimeter for you on a nightly basis? We know, obviously, there's the chemistry and the locker room fit. Like, how is that going to come into things given what Butler's done at multiple franchises now? He makes nearly double the salary. Like, Wiggins is on like 26, Butler's on 48. If you're trading Wiggins for Butler, okay, you're going to have to give him a big payday in free agency to retain him. Otherwise, he's just going to walk. And then if he walks, and you've basically just traded Wiggins for a 2-3 month rental, and this team right now at 23 and 23, you go and get Jimmy Butler tomorrow, I still have serious doubts on whether you're a playoff team. So what, you're going to trade Andrew Wiggins for 2 or 3 months of Jimmy Butler and possibly end up as either not a playoff team or a first round exit at best? Is that what you're going to do? I just don't think... I actually, going back to Maddie's question, I'd probably consider Draymond first and foremost, because I think, like, I almost think Wiggins is too important in terms of his skill set, this kind of 3-and-D wing who can give you a little bit of shot creation and stuff as well. The other thing with Butler is that if you trade Wiggins or Draymond for Butler and a bunch of other guys, like, it would have to be Wiggins, probably Schroeder, probably GP2. What are we getting to? That's close to the mark. And then maybe one of Looney or Buddy Hield or Kyle Anderson, and you get a couple of Miami players coming back the other way. Who knows? It's still very complicated. Even if you say, well, we're not actually giving up Podziemski, Kuminga, or first-round picks here, it's still difficult. The other thing is, if you keep Kuminga, you trade for Jimmy Butler, and then you ultimately re-sign Jimmy Butler, he's going to want at least 30. At least I'm putting 30 as a minimum, $30 million a year. So if you do that in free agency, then what are you doing with Kuminga's restricted free agency? Are you paying him over $30 million? Now all of a sudden you've got three guys, Steph, Butler, Kuminga, all making over $30 million, and you're still going to have one, you'd imagine, of Draymond or Wiggins, probably Draymond in that scenario, making $25 million. Okay, all of a sudden the Warriors are going to be back in, significant tax apron issues. They're going to have significant tax apron issues in terms of being either over the first or the second tax apron. And what's that getting you? What's Steph, like, let's say it's Steph, Draymond, Butler, Kuminga. Where's that getting you? Is that enough? Maybe it is. Maybe it is, but it's also a bit of a weird timeline because you've just paid Kuminga, who's 22, over $30 million, but you're also paying a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler over $30 million. I just, there's too many downsides for me, like in this scenario for it to be worth it, in my opinion. When you take in the age, the injury history, the money, the value Wiggins holds on this team specifically with his skill set, as opposed to Butler. Like, you have Butler, Draymond. You'd almost have to go out and get a shooting five in that scenario. And then how do you do that when you've just given up $50 million in salary for Butler? Like, who's your shooting five? Because I don't really want to have Butler, Draymond, and TJD on the floor together, or Looney, right? Do you have to start quitting posts in that scenario? And then it's like, hang on, we just traded for 34-year-old Jimmy Butler, but we're starting a rookie center? I don't know. A few more comments from you guys here. Kevin says, wow, Kerr can't develop young players. I think being a bit sarcastic there. Griffin Gamble, my colleague at Blue Man Hoop, says, Brandin has been really great since returning from injury. Really nice to see. Yep, he's been excellent. Cornelius says, Moody deserves to close games over Podz right now. Well, they both closed tonight, and I actually like the closing lineup was the best one, I think, where they had, well, no, Gee played a little bit. So maybe did Gee close over Moody and Podz closed over Moody? Let me just see. So it was Schroeder. Yeah, you're right. So Moody subbed out with 3:12 to go for Schroeder. And so the closing lineup was Schroeder, Podziemski, Santos, Wiggins, Looney. I don't mind that. Moody was fine. He was good in the first half. Moody or Santos, I thought Podz deserved to close. So if he closed with Moody or Gee in that game, I wouldn't have really minded. Cornell says, when they cut the lead to 1, Moody came off the screen, hit a big 3 next possession, drove to the hole and got fouled. He's been playing lights out. He deserves better from Steve. There's a lot of times you can complain about that and be frustrated. I get that. But he did play 27 and a half minutes today. Like, he got his fair share of minutes, and he started. Kevin says, trading for a rental for an average team with cap issues would be capital D dumb. Yeah, I agree. There's just too many downsides. Young West says, I heard Kings are trying to shop De'Aaron Fox. Should Warriors show interest? Yes. So if I was the Warriors and I was looking at one of these two players before the deadline, then I think Fox would definitely be the one that I go after because he's making slightly less. Now, yes, he would require much more in the way of assets. Now, you'd probably have to give up one of Kuminga or Podziemski in that scenario, probably Podziemski, I'd imagine, and probably draft capital on top of that. So he would take significant more assets, but he's 27 years old. All right, he's right in the prime age of his career. And we've just been talking about who is Steph's backcourt partner. Now, I don't think De'Aaron Fox, Steph Curry is a great pairing necessarily, but I think they're both so talented individually as players that they'd make it work. And then all of a sudden, like, you've got your backcourt sorted, right? And you don't have to have this constant issue of who's starting next to Steph. Oh, we're going to go Lindy Waters, and then we're going to go Buddy Hield, and then Schroeder's going to come in, and that didn't work. So we're going to go back to Buddy Hield, even though he's horribly out of form and everyone hates it, right? So what are the Warriors? That would instantly fix one of their issues. It would also fix, like, having this second go-to scorer. He's averaging over 25 points per game. Not great necessarily efficiency, but he has been reasonable over the last couple of seasons. He'll get you 6-7 assists, like another go-to shot creator. So if I was the Warriors, it would cost more to get De'Aaron Fox in terms of assets, but he's the one that I'd probably be targeting. Sounds like the Spurs are probably in the box seat there. It also sounds like, what the Kings could potentially get in return might not be as much as what we think because De'Aaron can be a free agent next year. And it sounds like his agency there, Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, will probably try and angle him somewhere where he's sure to re-sign and basically ward off any team that they don't want to go to and say, hey, you can trade for De'Aaron, but he's not sticking around, so there's no point trading for him. And then if you're basically trying to eliminate 25 to 28 teams maybe from the conversation, then all of a sudden what the Kings can expect to get back for those 2 to 5 teams that are in contention, probably aren't what they initially thought or what they would like, obviously, in a trade. So it'd be interesting. But again, I think if the Warriors, obviously there's the relationship there with Steph as part of the Curry brand. So if the Warriors can get in that conversation, it's certainly be, worth finding out what it would take and having those discussions with the Kings. I don't think Sacramento would really want to help out their Pacific rival in the Warriors too much in terms of giving them De'Aaron Fox. But again, they might be pretty limited if Fox and his camp is saying, "Hey, I only want to go to one of these two teams or whatever else." But for me, I'd be surprised if he's not on the Spurs by the trade deadline, which is a bit more worrying for the Warriors because not only do they face the Spurs a couple more times later in the season, but the Spurs are directly behind them in the standings. And if they acquire Fox, then that's a clear signal that, hey, we're ready to take a little bit of a leap here, and they could all of a sudden become a playoff threat. They're not that far off the mark in the West right now. Connor says, Green's not going anywhere. Nobody gets Steph open like he does. Nobody got the chemistry with Steph like Draymond. These games show it's hard for Steph to get a lot of open looks when Dre's not playing. Certainly a point, yeah, whether Steph would tick off on that. I doubt it. I'm with you on that. I think as much as I actually think having Wiggins, Butler, and Steph might actually make a bit more sense than Steph, Butler, and Draymond, just in terms of the on-court fit. I think the chemistry stuff that you're talking about, I think just what Draymond means to the franchise, I think any discussions would be around Wiggins more so than Draymond. Berserk Mike says 2 teams the Kings probably hate the most would be Warriors and Lakers. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna help us out too much. Berserk Mike also says thoughts on the Sixers smacking the Lakers. No Embiid, no Paul George. Davis got injured 10 minutes into the game, almost the same scenario as the Christmas Day game. Yeah, I didn't actually watch it, but yeah, good result for the Warriors, I suppose, in terms of the Lakers losing any results for the Warriors that ends up with a team above them in the standings losing is a good result. I mean, Houston getting the win over Atlanta. Houston way too far up the standings for the Warriors to even be able to look at them, basically. So that doesn't really matter. But yeah, let's just have a look at the updated standings at the moment. In fact, let's just check the cricket score. I think it's lunch. Sorry, I've also had the cricket going. Australia, Sri Lanka here, just checking the scores, but it looks like it's lunch. Someone knows the score and is actually following the cricket and is an American, then let me know. Let's have a look at the Western Conference standings right now with the Warriors updated 23 and 23. So the Thunder and the Rockets and the Grizzlies and the Nuggets probably all out of reach, you'd imagine. And then we get to the Lakers, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Suns, the Mavericks, and the Kings, and then the Warriors. So the Warriors still a full game back of the Kings, who are 24 and 22, Warriors 23 and 23. Of course, when I say that the Spurs could make a bit of a leap with Fox going there, then depending on the return, the Kings could also see a bit of a downfall. It does make me think where Sacramento are going because they've just got DeRozan, who's obviously a veteran player. They've still got Sabonis. They obviously re-signed Malik Monk to a good contract. Like, where exactly are they going if they move Fox? It's interesting. Dallas 25 and 22. They're a game and a half ahead of the Warriors, as are the Suns. The Timberwolves are two games ahead. Clippers are 3 games. Lakers 3.5. So, look, at the moment, the Warriors, they still have an eye on the top 6. Like, it's not that insurmountable. We're only 46 games through the season. So, yeah, I don't know. I try and hold out some optimism of a top 6 spot. I think it's unlikely, but they're still within touching distance enough. Maddie says, I don't think the Kings would ever give us Fox. No, probably unlikely. Douglas says, Steph, Butler, Wiggins would give me hope for this season. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you do around that. Like who, I suppose Kuminga would start then and have Steph, Wiggins, Butler, Kuminga, and I don't know, Quentin Post. I don't know. It's really interesting stuff. Like I woke up this morning and, the Warriors had, Nikola Vucevic in their sights and there was no plan of getting, an all-star level player before the trade deadline. All of a sudden, the report says renewed interest in Jimmy Butler, and all of a sudden De'Aaron Fox is now available, and we're talking about that as well. So things can happen pretty quickly here. And who knows, maybe Jimmy Butler or De'Aaron Fox, one of them, are a Golden State Warrior within a week. Like things can move quickly here. Who knows? Man, I could wake up tomorrow morning and miss all these tweets from Shams that says that Jimmy Butler is now a Golden State Warrior. Who knows? Douglas says, what do you think about trading for Lonzo? I'd love to get rid of Schroeder and Hield. You know what? I don't hate it. The contracts they work, don't they? If you go, let's get up the Fanspo trade machine. If you go Schroeder and Hield for Lonzo. I don't know. I just like the injury stuff still worries me. He's also only expiring, isn't he? Is he only expiring if he's got 1 year left? He's on expiring. So again, is it worth it? Are you re-signing him in free agency? And if so, what number? He makes $21.3 million. So if you trade Buddy Hield and Dennis Schroeder, probably I don't know if you'd have to give up a pick, probably. God, if Fanspo have got this all. I think it works. Hang on. Who are they? I'm so confused here. 20, that's 21.7 and 21.3. I'm pretty sure it can work. Geez, they've given us a deep financial breakdown into this. Says they can't do it because Schroeder can't be traded right now. We know that. That will change on February 5. How is Lonzo? Lonzo's got $1 million in unlikely incentives. So no, it can't happen. You look at his contract; he's 21.3, but he's got. Is this? I think Fanspo have updated it because they never used to do this before. Lonzo's got $1 million in unlikely incentives, which counts against the cap. So they're actually it's 22.3, and the Warriors are sending out 21.7, and they can't do that. Wow, there you go. Interesting. Berserk Mike says, still think Cam Johnson or Jakob Poeltl are more realistic, easier options, and Cam Johnson can always be flipped next season for assets if this season fails. Jakob Poeltl would be the most, dull trade for me. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's a good player, but, why? What's he doing for you? Is he significantly better than both Looney and Jackson Davis? He might be better, yeah, but is he significantly better? Does he offer you something different? I don't think so. Cam Johnson, I just think the Nets, it doesn't sound like the Nets are overly eager to move him unless it's a really, really good deal for them and basically the team's paying overs. Paul says, what about Zion to the Warriors? Yeah, we've spoken about that previously. I'd actually be down for it. If it was basically just expiring contracts and you were just taking him off the Pelicans books because they were done with him kind of thing, then yeah. Would I give up significant assets for him? No. Berserk Monk says, use Spotrac trade machine way better. They update regularly. Okay, I might have to do that next time. Berserk Monk says it lets you remove trade restrictions to see trade scenarios. Yeah, I do like that Fanspo have updated and put in the unlikely incentives because I was listening to a podcast the other week where, I can't even remember who it was talking about you've actually got to make sure these guys don't have unlikely incentives because they do count against the cap. And so even though it says Lonzo Ball's only making 21.3, he's actually technically making 22.3 when you try and orchestrate a trade. Douglas says we can send Lindy Waters. Yeah, you could do that. The issue is, again, having the money left over to sign guys afterwards. You'd probably just try and convert Quentin Post to a standard contract and then Kevin Knox the second maybe. Douglas says, Warriors front office at the deadline, quote, we tried to make a trade, but they wanted stuff and we got scared. Yeah, that's the classic line. I think fans are getting frustrated at the Warriors. And I understand, I don't think teams want to help Golden State out too much after 4 championships in the last decade. So I understand that, but I also understand fans getting frustrated at this team being linked to so many guys and trying to make trades, whether it be LeBron 12 months ago, Markin and George in the offseason, Butler now they've been linked to, now Vucevic, all these guys have been pretty significantly linked to, and yet the only trade they've actually made during this period was Dennis Schroeder, which was a very, very simple one because the Warriors had this injured guy that they weren't, obviously wasn't playing, and then the Nets didn't want Dennis Schroeder because he was helping them win games. So that was just the simplest, most obvious trade ever. Whenever it gets complicated, it seems like the Warriors can never get stuff done, unfortunately. Mark Mark says Steve is giving Buddy as much leash as Prime Clay. Insane. Yeah, it's why is he still starting again? I'll go back to why can't we have? I'd like to say it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think my starting lineup would be Steph, Wiggins, Moody, Santos, and probably Looney, because I just don't think they're going to start Quinton Post over Looney or Jackson Davis and have him imagine Shea. Imagine Shea just seeing Quinton Post out on the floor and thinking, who is this guy? I'm just going to go straight at him possession after possession. And we've seen Quinton Post get into foul trouble, and we know Shea gets foul calls. It's a recipe for disaster. And then I'm not sure how you can sit TJD in the second half here and then go back to him tomorrow. That's legitimately might happen, but I just don't think it will. So I wouldn't be surprised if Looney gets a start again tomorrow. Paul says the Warriors could have had Plowden from the G League. He's playing with Atlanta right now. He had a massive game on his debut, I think, earlier in the month, didn't he? He had 21 points or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to finish it up there because obviously the Warriors have got another game tomorrow and we'll be back to do another post-game live after that one. There's probably going to be plenty more Jimmy Butler and De'Aaron Fox stuff between now and then as well, so I'll be sure to cover it all. I might, if there's huge stuff, if there is a trade, for example, I don't think it will happen, but if there was a trade to happen overnight for me, and if I was to wake up to a trade tomorrow, then I'll definitely come on and do a podcast episode before that post-game live. Otherwise, thanks to all of you that have commented, or if you're watching this on replay, or if you're listening via the podcast feed, much appreciated for the ongoing support. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter, also on Instagram, TikTok, Golden State with mates as well. Not overly confident on the Warriors getting the job done over the Thunder tomorrow, but Steph should be back. We'll wait and see. I don't know what's going on with Draymond because they called him day-to-day as well. Not sure if he'll be back tomorrow. Probably not, but we'll wait and see. Let's hope for back-to-back Warrior wins, which is pretty rare at the moment. Thanks again, guys.